So here's a video about how to make a surgical mask. So you have your pattern, your scissors, and if you have this like certain fabric cutter and the little board to it, you can use that as well, or you can just use this pair of scissors. I used in this instructional video just a pair of old jean pants and a sewing machine. If you don't have a sewing machine, you can absolutely do it by hand. It'll obviously just take a little bit longer. So first things first, here is your pattern. Mine is obviously used, but just grab a scrap piece of cardboard or whatever that's sturdy enough. And so the dimensions, you'll see it kind of points up here. It's 1.5 inches by 5.5 inches by 7.75 inches by 4.25 inches. So you need 2 of these to make the mask. So if you're cutting on 1 layer of fabric, you'll do one on this side and then flip it one on the other side. If you're cutting through 2 layers, like a pair of jeans that's naturally in 2 layers, then you can just cut through once and you get both sides of your fabric. Okay, so after you've cut out your pieces of fabric using your pattern, I used a jean pant leg, so it cut out double. Whichever side you want showing on the outside of your mask, you're going to put them facing inwards towards each other. So this I want on the outside, so I'm going to invert them facing each other. And then we're going to sew along here. Now we're going to go ahead and sew along the rounded portion. If you want to pin it, you can, but because the jean material kind of stays where you put it, I don't necessarily use a pin for this material. It's pretty easy to work with. So let's go ahead and sew it together. Make sure you do a couple back stitches. If you don't have a back stitch button, then you can lift up the foot, put it back down, sew forward again, lift up the foot, and then keep going. Do your own back stitch, but that just helps it stay in place. So you do a back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Kind of like if you were sewing by hand, you would just, you know, tie a knot at the beginning and the end, but this is like a sewing machine's version of tying a knot. So now you've got it sewn together. We can cut these strings off, but you can see when you invert it, it becomes like a mask. So now we have our mask shape. This is the nose portion and it curls upwards. You're gonna flip it over and we are going to work on the little hem of it, because if you don't sew it down, the fabric will begin to unravel. So that's the next step. So we're gonna start, doesn't matter which side, I like to start at this side where it curves, and we're going to sew all of this down. Once again, you can pin it and then sew. I just like to do it as I go. We're gonna do it all the way. Then when you get to the corner here, this part will be sewn down. You're gonna just flip the end down, sew along here. Then when you get to about here, you'll then flip this end down. This is if you're going just by hand and you don't use pins. If you use pins, then go ahead and pin everything down exactly how you'd sew it. And then you're gonna come back and it'll finish on the side you started on. So don't forget to do your, when you start, your backward stitching to secure it, and then you'll come back and your backward stitching to secure where you end. So let's do this next step. So you can see I started here with the stitching just to give you a close-up look. So you're gonna do this and you're gonna go all the way around. So I'll show you what that looks like now. Make sure to do a few back stitches to secure the thread. Okay. And then this is the part where it can get a little chunky, where you have the other seam that's kind of bunchy, but it's okay. So what you're gonna do is when you get to that part, the needle might get a little stuck because it's thicker fabric. You're gonna use your other hand and pull from the other side to help the needle along. And we're through. First, I guess ear side. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna fold this down if you haven't pinned already, and then we're gonna fold that portion down, and we're gonna keep trucking along and pivot and do the same thing on this other side here. We're coming up to the other side of the bunched fabric. So I just like to make sure I fold it in the same direction as the first one, just to keep everything uniform. Definitely don't have to, might be more of an OCD thing. And we're through the bunched fabric. And we're coming up to where we started. Back to the beginning, and we'll fold that portion over, and we're almost done. Careful your fingers, obviously. So you can do the back stitch if you have a button, or once again, you can back stitch by pivoting and going forward. Pivoting and going forward. So we've now finished the seams all along the mask, and this is what it looks like now. So we have our mask that we just did all around, and we have some extra strings. You can cut them as you go, or you can cut them all at the end. It doesn't really matter. And I've been using elastic and attaching it on both sides. Some people have complained that going around their ears for too long hurts them, so I tried to do a design that could fit over your head and also make it easy as well. If you do not have elastic, then you can attach ribbon or string, you know, something like that where you can tie, or you can do hair ties, like, you know, the circular elastic hair ties, and you can make them go over your ears. You can do whatever you want. So for this case, for this purpose, and video, I'm going to use this elastic strip. So just to show you the pattern that we're going to use to sew on the elastic piece to the face mask fabric, it's going to be this pattern. So we'll go up, then over, then X, over, like that. I just find that it holds it more secure, especially because it is being pulled so tight. So once again, and you'll see it as we go, then zigzag, then back over, zigzag, complete. Back stitches here and here. Okay, so we're gonna attach the elastic. So make sure whichever side you want out is facing the same direction as the fabric that you want out as well. And we're just gonna sew it right here. So let's get to it. And we're gonna do that X pattern that I just showed you. And it's not gonna look like a perfect X pattern, but it'll keep it secure enough that even when it's pulled tightly, it won't come undone. Don't forget the back stitches. So we did the first straight line, pivot, we're going across. Now we're going to do the diagonal portion. And come across. diagonal portion back the other way, so we're now completing the X. Come back across. And then down to finish the square around it. Back stitches. And let's see the final product. So this is what it looks like when it's complete. Like an X in a box. So let's do the other side. To make sure that when you're doing the other side, you have to take it and rotate it inwards because your other portion is attached now. You can see how that would make a mask. All right, let's attach it. So we just did the other side, and now we have a complete mask. And you can see, you can pull it pretty tight and it stays. So let's cut off the strings and we will see our final product. So here's our final mask. The elastic goes up and over and goes underneath the chin. Now depending on your face size, you can adjust the pattern to make it shorter, wider, longer, whatever you need. But there you go. Stay safe.